As a constitutional law attorney, former senior legal advisor, and personal counsel to President Donald J. Trump, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Jenna Ellis Show. I'm Jenna Ellis, and everyone is so concerned right now across the country about draining the swamp, beating the elites, and making sure that we can preserve and protect liberty for the future generations. And so this is well beyond just a GOP primary. This is well above party politicking. This is all about fundamentally being an American. So my good friend Ashley Hayek, who is part of America First Works, wrote a brand new book called Beat the Elites and has a 5-step plan that you can implement right now to secure your voice and actually make a difference in civic participation. And that's what America genuinely is all about. We, the people. So Ashley is going to join me coming up next with more on Beat the Elites. With inflation, the banking world collapse, and everything that Joe Biden is doing not to protect America, you need to make sure to secure your financial health, especially in retirement. And hey, if you're a millennial like me, that actually is sooner than you think. You need to start now, even if you are a millennial or a Gen Zer, to make sure that your financial health is actually healthy when we get to retirement. And Legacy Precious Metals has a revolutionary new online platform that allows you to invest in gold and silver online in real time. In a few easy steps, you can open an account online, select your metals of choice, and choose to have them stored in a vault or shipped right to your door. You'll have access to a dashboard where you can track your portfolio growth in real time anytime. You'll see transparent pricing on each coin and bar, and this puts you in complete control of your money. The platform is free to sign up for. Visit legacypminvestments.com and open your account and see this new investing platform for yourself. Gold hedges against inflation and against a volatile stock market. A truly diversified portfolio isn't just more stocks and bonds, but different asset classes. This brand new platform allows you to make investments in gold and silver, no matter how small or large, with just a few clicks. Visit legacypm.com to get started. You can download the free investor's guide, and you can also call Legacy PM Investments to talk to a portfolio expert to get expert answers to your to customize your personal portfolio. So visit legacypminvestments.com to get started. Tell them that Jenna sent you. All right, so joining me now is Ashley Hayek, who's the executive director of America First Works, and she has a brand new book out called Beat the Elites. And Ashley, this was such a great conversation that you and I had on my radio show yesterday, and got a lot of really great feedback from listeners because they just loved what you had to say about the book and about your experience in Washington with the consultant world. So I kind of want to go into a little bit more depth in that. So first, you wrote this book called Beat the Elites, and I think especially with what's going on right now in the vacate the chair motion. And I think, a lot of people are really concerned that a lot of people in Washington, even the Republican side of things, are more concerned about politicking than they are about really the steps to secure freedom and liberty for the American people. So what is your book about, and how can we beat the elites?
Sure. Well, thank you, Jenna. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited. When I started writing this book, I was traveling early this year into the different state houses for state legislatures, talking about different policy ideas. And one of the things that I learned was that really there's such a big disconnect between what happens in Washington and then what's happening actually in the states. And another thing that I've noticed too is, there's such a huge hypocrisy between the elites and the establishment and the both elected and unelected bureaucrats and really the American people. So, for example, we see how they don't want illegals taking over their communities, and they have big fences around their homes, but yet they open our borders. They want to defund the police, but yet they have private security. They give themselves pay increases, yet they put more tax dollars on us, make it harder for us to get a job. Our economy suffers, and it's a lot harder to have prosperity. And so as I started writing this book, I just saw all of these examples of this, double standard between the elites and the American people. But the other thing I realized is really we have the power, and we have the power to do something about it. And we can demand and we can impose change on the bureaucrats. And we talked about this yesterday too. America came to be because we had the biggest bully in King George in Britain trying to control the American people and the patriots. And that was when the farmers and the teachers and the moms and the dads came together and fought to make America independent.
Yeah, and I think that's such a great point that in America's history and our legacy really is pushing back against the establishment and against the petty tyrants that were all the way back at America's founding. And it's unfortunately no different because as the founders, especially in the Federalist Papers, like James Madison and Alexander Hamilton, were all writing about how power has to contradict power and how it's human nature for whoever is in government office to seek more power rather than truly be a public servant. And I think we've kind of lost sight of that in a lot of the establishment uniparty that's going on in DC. And so it's really important for American citizens to feel like we have a voice still and that we can fight back against the corruption in Washington that is unfortunately on both sides. And so you lay out kind of a 5-step plan for people to be able to really easily grasp. So what are the 5 steps as kind of a preview? And of course, everyone should get this book. It's called Beat the Elites, and how we can actually use our voice and enact change.
Yeah, I think the 5 steps are really just the beginning. So there's 5 different petitions. One is secure the border. One is make Washington work like we do. That one is actually calling for elected officials to not be allowed to run for re-election if they're not able to grow our economy. I mean, that's a pretty simple job, right? Like reduce regulation, lower taxes, make prosperity an option for all people. And if you're not able to do that job and serve the American people, then you should not be able to run for office again, right? So, or we vote them out. So that's another call to action. We have unshackle American energy so that we can become energy independent once again. And we really have pushing for and advancing the America First agenda. So there's a number of different campaigns that are affiliated. You sign up online on the petition, and it will send a note, a tweet, a text to these legislators to impose the framing and impose what we need to have in America. But that's just the beginning. And with America First Works, our 501c4, we're focused on building neighborhood advocates. So one thing that you and I both know is people always ask, are you like me? Do we share a same story? And when we can have more people share their story and share why America First policies are the best policies and have that commonality. We're not going to always agree on all of the things, but if we can find something that's common with our neighbors, then I think we're going to really have an opportunity to change hearts and minds across the country down at the neighborhood level. So that's our second project that we're really focused on.
And I think that coalition building is so critical. And you served as the coalition's director for Trump 2020, and those different avenues, I think, were so important because it was people who, maybe have different identities, whether it's in faith-based organizations, whether it's, Women for Trump, whether it was, part of some other community, but we all focused on the commonalities and the common values of what we would like to see represented in our government. And so coalition building around values and around that type of policy framework is incredibly important. And you did such an amazing job with those coalitions. And I think that was critical to show that there was a coalescing around the conservative movement. And I'd love to see more of that heading into 2024 instead of this ridiculous fracturing that's now part, unfortunately, of the GOP primary. But I think we'll all move past that regardless of who the nominee is. So in terms of also the establishment in Washington, you were talking as well yesterday about some of the personnel issues and how to actually drain the swamp, and how the partner organization America First Policy Institute is really planning for that transition for the next president that was kind of missing in 2016. And that's a critical aspect as well.
Yeah, one thing that we realized was when President Trump took office, on his first day, in the first several days, there were 0 executive orders signed. When President Biden took office, there was dozens of executive orders that were signed on day one. Remember, the Keystone Pipeline is a perfect example. And so we have to be prepared in this next administration. So whether it's a Donald Trump or a Ron DeSantis or a Nikki Haley or Vivek Ramaswamy, that they have a playbook day one in the next administration. AFPI is focused on policy, personnel, and process. Secretary David Bernhardt, who's Secretary of the Interior. And one of the things that he writes about is draining the swamp. And rather than trying to figure out where the bathroom is, right, for your first week or first month, you're able to identify what processes you can implement and what changes you can make to fundamentally change these departments. I mean, I've heard countless stories of unelected bureaucrats completely just undermining the elected office. Vivek Ramaswamy came to America First Works about a month ago, and he said, you know, if you're elected to office and or if you're the CEO of a private company, if your employees or if your staff is not doing what you told them to do, then you are not in charge. And that really resonated. And it doesn't matter who our next commander in chief is. If you have an entire movement that's trying to undermine you, you've got to fix that, and you need to know how to fix it. And that's really what AFPI is working on, having that playbook for on day one of the next administration.
And that's, I think, so incredibly important to have those personnel and that kind of policy framework and that agenda, regardless of who comes into office, because it seems like the campaigns then, because they're so fractured and there are different loyalties among those members, then the person who ultimately is elected only draws from the people that they know. And then they're kind of having to say, well, we don't have someone for this office. And so then they're looking and trusting other organizations and other people that are maybe more outside. And we saw that very clearly in 2016 with President Trump, who was the outsider. And that's what everyone loved about him, was that he wasn't from Washington. And that cut both ways in terms of being really, really great on a lot of things, but not so great on some other things like personnel. And so talking about the consultant class as well, you've been a consultant in DC on a variety of things, for several decades. And so you're very familiar with how DC operates. And I think that consulting in general, in kind of the national sort of understanding, I guess, we tend to think of consultants as just these sort of hired guns and these mercenaries that just go in and don't really care about things. And we always tend to read about them in Politico as maybe more of a negative spin. But it is important to have consultants, but people that you can actually trust. And so how can the average voter understand kind of how Washington works in terms of the consultant class, why it's critical, but then maybe some progress that we can make so that the consultants are actually working for the candidate instead of just, one campaign and then moving on to the next thing?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I've been in DC now for 4 years. I came from California, which I'm not sure if that's much better, to be honest with you, right, given the politics, but I learned a lot when I was doing political fundraising in Southern California. And one of those things was we would send an email when a candidate was running for reelection. And right away, we would know whether a candidate or an elected official had been serving their constituents by the responses we would get. So in some cases, people would reply and say, like, absolutely no problem. Thank you so much for serving. We're excited for the next 2 years or 4 years. And then some would say, well, wait a minute, I haven't heard from you for the past 2 or 4 years. Where have you been? And now you want my money? So it was really telling to me who was actually serving their constituents and who was not. And I think when you look at the presidential landscape, you have a number of candidates that are running that do have a record and that you do know where they stand. And you can look at those records and make the best judgment for yourself. You can do outreach to the campaigns. You can ask questions. You can get involved. And just test the responsiveness and see, what they're willing to do and how much they're willing to get involved. And obviously, there's going to be priorities through a campaign. There's no doubt about that. But I think being able to address concerns of constituents is really important. The other thing, too, is people forget, like I said, the power is with the people. So if there is something that is a really important issue in your community, get a group of people together and impose that on the elected official or on the candidate, and ask for some accountability or ask the hard questions. Show up at the forum, be a part of the PTO, question the administrators in the school boards or at the county level or even the state legislature. And I think when you have a group of people that are willing to come together and put forth those questions, and you can do it in a way that is, servant as a servant leader, and you can do it in a way that's mission focused and with love. It doesn't have to be, aggressive or mean or anything, but you can expect and you will be able to see very quickly who's going to respond and who is not going to respond. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, yeah, I think it's so important that candidates are actually focused on constituents instead of just their own priorities and what they presume that everyone wants from them, or saying, well, now that I'm in office, then, who cares about what I said on the campaign trail? I'm going to now go and have a totally different voting record. That's what's frustrating to a lot of people.
Oh, without a doubt. And we can track their voting records, right? And when we see that there's an issue that's really important, it's really about being educated about those issues. And looking at groups like America First Policy Institute, America First Works. We partner a lot with Turning Point Action. They have an incredible scorecard that you can look on their website for. So there's different tools that you can use. America First Policy Institute has an America First Parents website. It has every single school board member's contact information. It has toolkits on how you can request information, do a public records request. You could do that at almost any level of government. You could do it for district attorneys' offices or school boards or state legislators or even the federal government. So we have the power, we have access to it. The elites don't get to, turn their backs on us. It's time that we reclaim that power and let them know we're watching and we're going to hold them accountable.
Yeah. And one of the things, Ashley, as well, that I think a lot of people just in the common understanding and perception of government, because there is so much emphasis on Washington and on Congress, and that's where the national media is focused all the time. There really isn't a sense of how important and how valuable the state level is and state sovereignty. And, you mentioned coming from California. My former home state of Colorado is almost just as bad as Washington now. And we're seeing this really big diversity among blue states and red states. And even just in the COVID pandemic response, and then how they're dealing now with the overturning of Roe versus Wade, and whether, you have these Republican governors that are great, like in Florida and Georgia and Iowa, and others in Ohio that are signing heartbeat bills. And then you have the left that, and these blue states that are still for state-funded abortion on demand, so there's so much that is different among the states, but we can really affect that and affect a lot of change if our state legislatures and our governors would realize how much power they actually have. I mean, looking at what Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis actually did in terms of making Florida an excellent model, and the Florida blueprint, I think is so important for people to understand on a state level as well. And so in terms of the consultant class and how we can beat the elites, even just from a state level perspective, how important are the grassroots and the statewide organizations?
Yeah, the grassroots are critical at the state level. So a perfect example of this is in North Carolina. You have a very liberal Democrat governor in North Carolina, but you have an amazing lieutenant governor, Mark Robinson. You have several state legislators. You have actually, I think, a supermajority in both chambers. And they were able to pass school choice and then override the governor's veto after the governor said that school choice, believe it or not, was enough for a state of emergency for the state of North Carolina, which is crazy. So having the state legislature and having that demand, now there are list of people who are trying to access the school choice, the funding is super long. We saw the same thing in Iowa with Governor Kim Reynolds, but also look at Governor Kim Reynolds and look what's happening in Texas. If you don't get rid of some of those so-called Republican legislators who aren't supporting things like, equal access to education for all children, they've got to go. And you have an opportunity to expose that and to vote them out. You can give them the opportunity, you can meet with them, but we cannot give an ounce of more power to the national teachers unions, because those are the ones that are actually controlling a lot of these legislators who are voting against things like school choice. And that's just one of dozens of examples.
Yeah. And those examples are so key. And I think, those are the kinds of things that are never talked about on mainstream media. You might get, one in a flood of articles that talks a little bit about that, but not to all of the depth and detail that you just articulated. And so, for people who are listening, who feel like they don't have a voice, or maybe they live so far away from Washington, D.C., they feel like they're so detached by just watching the national news, you can get involved on the state level. You do have a voice, you are important, and the issues that you care about are really what ultimately secures freedom for everyone in America. And these types of organizations like America First Works and AFPI are incredibly important because they're not just for one specific campaign or one specific candidate. It really is coalition building. And I'm really grateful for all of the work that you've done, Ashley. So thank you so much on behalf of everyone in America who cares about all of these issues. So how can people find you and find your book, Beat the Elites, so that they can get excited about their civic engagement as well?
So our website is pretty simple, americafirstworks.com, all spelled out. You can sign up. We're going to be sending out a bunch of different campaigns here pretty soon and ways to get involved in your communities. And then also Beat the Elites is on Amazon. The Kindle version is up. We're waiting for the print version to come up. It should come up literally any minute. So you're our first one that we get to highlight this with, Jenna. So we're very excited. And one more thing I just wanted to say, before, when you looked at what was happening at the federal level, and I think we all really felt disconnected. I live in Virginia now. So even though I'm in Virginia and I'm so close and I work in downtown DC, I don't really feel like I'm a part of that. But when you see, the Department of Justice going after individual Americans, the pro-life dad who was praying outside of a plane or out of a abortion center. You have the school board mom and dad in Loudoun County that show up and they're going after them. When you see like all of these individual people from across the country that are being targeted by this Department of Justice, whether it's at the federal level or the state level, I mean, it is happening to everyday Americans, and we have to take back that power. So America First Works, sign up. We'll send you information on how to get involved. And thank you, Jenna, so much for all your support.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a critical organization. And as someone who's currently being targeted by a weaponized government, I can greatly appreciate how important this is. And we need to make sure that our institutions are not run away with power just so that they can target their political opponents or anyone who serves their political opposition or anyone who exercises their constitutionally protected rights to freedom, association, free exercise of religion, petitioning government for redress. I mean, all of these things are guarantees in our Constitution. And if we don't have good, solid coalitions and policy and organized action in place, then we'll just watch America crumble. And so this is so important for 2024, but especially for beyond, because we have to make sure that we protect the blessings of liberty for the next generation. So thank you again, Ashley Hayek, for being part of that. Thanks so much for coming on, and great to be the first person that you get to announce all of this and highlight your book. And I'm so excited to read it. So thanks so much for joining.
Thanks, Jenna. I appreciate it.
With inflation, the banking world collapse, and everything that Joe Biden is doing not to protect America, you need to make sure to secure your financial health, especially in retirement. And hey, if you're a millennial like me, that actually is sooner than you think. You need to start now, even if you are a millennial or a Gen Zer, to make sure that your financial health is actually healthy when we get to retirement. And Legacy Precious Metals has a revolutionary new online platform that allows you to invest in gold and silver online in real time. In a few easy steps, you can open an account online, select your metals of choice, and choose to have them stored in a vault or shipped right to your door. You'll have access to a dashboard where you can track your portfolio growth in real time anytime. You'll see transparent pricing on each coin and bar, and this puts you in complete control of your money. The platform is free to sign up for. Visit legacypminvestments.com and open your account and see this new investing platform for yourself. Gold hedges against inflation and against a volatile stock market. A truly diversified portfolio isn't just more stocks and bonds, but different asset classes. This brand new platform allows you to make investments in gold and silver, no matter how small or large, with just a few clicks. Visit legacypm.com to get started. You can download the free investor's guide, and you can also call Legacy PM Investments to talk to a portfolio expert to get expert answers to your to customize your personal portfolio. So visit legacypminvestments.com to get started. Tell them that Jenna sent you.
On MyPillow's 20-year anniversary, with over 80 million MyPillows sold, Mike Lindell wants to thank each and every one of you by giving you the lowest price in history on his MyPillows. You will receive a queen-size MyPillow for only $19.98. The regular price is $69.98 and just $10 more for a king size. You'll receive deep discounts on all MyPillow products such as bed sheets, mattress toppers, pet beds, mattresses, my slippers, which I love, and so much more. This is the time to try out some of the amazing products you've had your eye on from MyPillow. So go to mypillow.com and enter promo code Jenna to receive this amazing offer on the queen size MyPillow for $19.98. You can go to mypillow.com or call 1-800-564-8475. Be sure to use the promo code Jenna. This offer comes with a 10-year warranty and a 60-day money-back guarantee. It's time to start getting the quality sleep you deserve. This offer comes with a 10-year warranty and a 60-day money-back guarantee. It's time to start getting the quality sleep you deserve. Go to mypillow.com, use the promo code Jenna.
When the government used emergency edicts during COVID to restrict the gathering and worship of churches, 3 pastors facing the risk of imprisonment, unlimited fines, and their own churches being ripped apart took a courageous stand and reopened their doors in the face of a world that chose to comply. The Essential Church is a feature-length documentary that explores the struggle between the church and government throughout history. This fascinating story uncovers those who've sacrificed their lives throughout history for what they truly believe in. Rediscover why the church is essential and how we prove that this stand remains true from a scientific, legal, and most importantly, biblical perspective. This is not your typical movie. It'll change your life. You need to see this movie with your friends and family. The Essential Church is streaming today exclusively at salemnow.com. That's Essential Church, streaming at salemnow.com.